No one noticed when he stood up. The plane had already settled into that quiet rhythm of a long flight. People were half asleep, headphones on, screens glowing softly in the dim cabin. Somewhere over the clouds, in that strange in-between place where you're not quite anywhere, a small, almost unremarkable decision was being made. A man in first class, known to the world, but just another passenger in that moment, unbuckled his seatbelt, glanced once toward the back of the plane, and then simply walked away from his wide leather seat. He didn't announce it. He didn't make a speech. There was no music, no spotlight, no one filming. Just a quiet exchange with the flight attendant, a nod, and then he was gone from the front of the cabin, blending into the line of narrow seats and cramped legs behind the curtain. Later, when someone would talk about it, the story would become, he gave up his first-class seat so someone else could sit there. It sounds like a headline. Clean. Simple. Almost too neat. But if you slow it down and look closely, the real story is not just about a seat on a plane. It's about the invisible weight of small decisions, the things we choose to hold on to, and the things we choose to let go. And somewhere in that quiet choice, there is a question worth sitting with. What are we actually holding on to when we cling to comfort? I remember hearing a version of that story for the first time. It came to me the way most things do now, through a passing mention, a short clip, a few sentences written underneath a photo. Keanu Reeves gave up his first-class seat so someone else could sit there. I scrolled past it at first. It sounded like the sort of thing people say online because they want to believe that someone, somewhere, still does small good things without asking for a reward. But that night, in the silence after the day had folded into darkness, the story came back to me. I found myself wondering not about the man himself, but about the moment right before the decision. That fragile second between staying where you are and getting up. Because we all have our own versions of first-class seats. For some people, it's money. For others, it's status. For many of us, it's the little comforts we protect. The better chair, the closer parking space, the extra slice, the bigger share. And I thought, how many times have I stayed seated? There is a certain way the world teaches us to move. It doesn't say it directly, but the message is clear enough. Protect your advantage. Guard your comfort. You earned it. You deserve it. From childhood, we pick up quiet lessons. Finish your plate before someone else takes it. Get there early so you get the best spot. Don't let people take advantage of you. At first, these messages are practical. The world can be harsh. There are only so many chairs in the room, only so many chances at the front of the line. But slowly, almost without noticing, survival habits turn into identities. We stop asking whether we really need what we are holding onto. We just hold tighter. I thought about that as I lay in bed, phone silent on the nightstand, the dark room filled with the faint sound of passing cars. Why does a story about a man leaving a comfortable seat stay with us? It's not because a seat is important. It's because every small act that goes against the current makes us remember that there is another way to live. Imagine the scene again, but more slowly. He's sitting in first class, already settled. Maybe he has a drink on the little table. Maybe he's grateful for the extra legroom after a long day. He didn't take that seat by accident. It was offered to him, or he paid for it, or it came with the life he happens to live. Then he sees something. Maybe it's a tired parent juggling a crying child. Maybe it's an older passenger wincing as they try to fold themselves into a slippery, narrow seat. Maybe it's someone whose body simply doesn't quite fit into the tight geometry of economy class. There is no script for what happens next. No rule that says, if you are comfortable and you see someone who is not, you must give up what you have. Most people would look, feel a little uncomfortable, maybe think, "That's unfortunate," and then go back to their movie. Not because they are bad people, but because the world has taught us that everyone is responsible for their own comfort. But he gets up. He talks to the flight attendant. He offers his seat. He goes back, disappears into a much smaller chair with less room, less quiet, less everything. The plane flies. Hours pass. No announcement is made. No one claps. The story could have ended there, unseen, unrecorded. It almost did. Small kindnesses disappear like that all the time, dissolving into the flow of days. But this one somehow surfaced, and people shared it, because something about it felt right. Not dramatic, not grand, just quietly right. The question is why? When I tried to understand what moved me about it, I realized it wasn't heroism. It wasn't sacrifice on a grand scale. It was something much more ordinary, and in a way, more demanding. The willingness to be slightly less comfortable so that someone else could be slightly more okay. This is a kind of humanity that doesn't make the news very often, because it's not spectacular. It doesn't change the world in a visible way. The plane was still going to land. Everyone was still going to get where they were going. But the inner world of at least two people shifted slightly that day, the person who received the seat and the person who gave it up. And perhaps, if we let it, our own. There is a subtle form of poverty that comes from always choosing ourselves first. We think we are protecting our peace, our time, our energy. And sometimes, we are. Boundaries matter. Self-respect matters. Survival matters. But somewhere past survival, something else begins. A different kind of richness that doesn't show in bank accounts or frequent flyer miles. It shows in how easily we can breathe when we look in the mirror. I've noticed in my own life that the days I feel most small are not the days when others ignore me or pass me by. They're the days I catch myself acting smaller than I'd like to be, the times I stay silent when I could have spoken kindly, or look away when I could have helped, or cling to a small privilege just because it's mine. Those are the days that stay with me. Not with guilt exactly, but with a sense of missed opportunity. Not a missed chance to be admired or praised. A missed chance to be the person I quietly hope I am. Stories like the one about the first-class seat touch that place. They hold up a simple mirror and ask, when the moment comes, and it does come, in many small ways, which part of yourself will you choose? We often imagine moral choices as dramatic crossroads, big decisions, life-changing consequences, clear good and evil. But most of the time, our lives don't look like that. Instead, we get dozens of small, ordinary moments that ask quiet questions. Will you let someone go ahead of you in line? Will you listen fully when you're tired and distracted? Will you offer your seat on a crowded bus? Will you give up the better slice, the better spot, the better view? None of these moments will write your name in history. No one will make a documentary about them. But together, they shape something far more important than a legacy. They shape your character. I think that's why people care when they hear about someone well-known choosing humility over privilege. It reminds us that however the world describes us, famous or unknown, rich or poor, powerful or ordinary, we are all standing in the same kind of hallway of choices. On one wall, comfort, convenience, personal advantage. On the other, quiet acts of care. We walk down that hallway every day. There is another layer to this too, one that has nothing to do with the passenger in first class and everything to do with us. When we admire this kind of story, what exactly are we admiring? It's tempting to say, we admire kindness. And that's true. But I think it goes deeper. We admire the simplicity of the act. No speech, no philosophy, no argument. Just, you need this more than I do. I'll be fine without it. We rarely say those words out loud, but we know their shape. Anytime we let someone have the bigger share, the better seat, the easier moment, we are quietly saying the same thing. Sometimes it feels like losing. Sometimes it feels like weakness. But if you listen carefully, something else is happening inside. We are learning that we are more than what we own, more than what we sit in, more than what we can claim. We are learning that our true value doesn't shrink when we give something away. There is an old idea in many philosophies and spiritual traditions that what you keep shrinks you, and what you give expands you. Not in the sense of possessions as such, but in the sense of tightness versus openness. When we hold too tightly to comfort, we move through the world with a kind of inner hunch. Our attention always curled inward, our hands always halfway to the protective stance of mine. We become smaller, not because the world makes us so, but because our own grip keeps us compressed. When we loosen that grip even a little, space opens. In that space, other people appear not as competitors for limited comfort, but as fellow travelers. Their pain doesn't feel like an intrusion, it feels like an opportunity, not to save them, not to fix everything, but to make this one moment slightly softer for them. That is not a grand mission. It doesn't require heroic strength. It just asks for presence. To look, to notice, to care enough to move. Of course, life is not that simple. Many of us have been told to give and give until we are empty. We've learned that our worth is measured only in how much we do for others. Some of us have given up our seats so often, and so unwillingly, that the idea of voluntarily giving more feels unbearable. That is why any reflection on kindness has to include something else: self-honesty. When the man in first class gave up his seat, it worked as a gesture because he was not erasing himself. He wasn't disappearing. He was just saying, in this moment, I can handle a little inconvenience. In this moment, someone else's need outweighs my own preference. There is a difference between generosity and self-erasure. Generosity says, I have enough to share. Self-erasure says, I don't matter. The first is an expression of strength. The second is a quiet kind of injury. The point is not to always give up your place, your comfort, your advantage. The point is to be awake enough to ask, each time, what do I truly need right now? What do they truly need? And what choice, if I make it, will leave me more whole, not less? Sometimes, holding your seat is the honest answer. Sometimes, you are the one who cannot fold into the narrow space of less. Sometimes, you are the one with the crying child inside, with the tired back, with the quiet ache that says, I need gentleness today. That, too, is wisdom. But very often, if we listen carefully, we discover this. We can handle more discomfort than we think. Our bodies complain, our habits resist, but our deeper self knows, we will be okay. And from that place, giving becomes possible. There's another side of the story we rarely hear, the effect on the person who received the seat. Imagine being exhausted, cramped, maybe in pain, resigned to hours of discomfort, and then a stranger appears, not with pity, but with a simple offer, take my place. No fuss. No performance. How would that change the way you feel, not only about that flight, but about people in general? One act doesn't erase a lifetime of hurt or struggle. It doesn't fix systems or heal old wounds. But it can put a small crack in the hard shell of cynicism that many of us wear. It can whisper, people are still capable of this. And maybe days or weeks later, when that person is in a small position of advantage, a better spot in a line, an extra seat, a moment of surplus time, they remember. And they make a similar choice, not because they are trying to live up to someone else's example, but because they have felt, in their own body, what that kind of kindness can do. This is how goodness travels, not in grand waves, but in quiet echoes. When we tell stories inspired by real moments, the risk is always that we turn them into something bigger or neater than they ever were. Real life is messy. Motives are mixed. No one is kind all the time. No one is generous in every moment. Not even those we admire. So it's important to hold this story lightly. Maybe the person in first class had a sore back too. Maybe he wanted the quiet just as much as anyone else. Maybe he hesitated for a moment before standing. Maybe he wondered afterward whether it even made a difference. But he still moved. And that, to me, is the heart of the lesson. Our choices do not need to be perfect to be meaningful. Our motives do not need to be pure to be valuable. We don't have to be heroes to practice humanity. We just have to be willing, every so often, to get up from our comfortable seat. If you look back at your own life, you may notice that the moments you're secretly proud of are not the ones where you look the best from the outside. They are often the small, almost invisible ones. The time you stayed with a friend who was struggling, even though you were tired. The time you apologized sincerely. The time you carried something heavy for someone without being asked. The time you chose patience over anger. The plane lands. People stand up, stretch, reach for bags. The person who sat in first class for those few hours steps back into the wider world, perhaps a little less stiff, a little less tired. The man who went to the back blends into the crowd. The story, if it lives at all, will live mostly in memory. A feeling of unexpected ease in a cramped journey, a small example shared with a friend, a quiet reflection years later. But you don't need to be on a plane to meet that kind of moment. It's at the bus stop, when you notice someone more tired than you. It's at the dinner table, when there's one piece left. It's in conversations, where you can either dominate or make room. It's in arguments, where you can insist on being right or allow understanding. Each of these is an invitation. Stay seated in the comfort of always choosing yourself first. Or stand up, walk a few steps towards someone else's need, and trust that you will still be okay. In the end, the story we are really writing is not about a celebrity on a plane. It's about the quiet, ordinary chances life keeps giving us to trade a small piece of our comfort for a small increase in someone else's dignity. And if we accept even a few of those chances, something gentle begins to shift inside us. We realize that the richest moments of our lives are often the ones where we let go. The first class seat is just a symbol. The real journey is learning that our true place in this world is not measured by where we sit, but by how we stand up for one another.